everybody remember, think of the question. I will be calling on you if there aren't any questions. Come on. Whenever you're ready.
We had to think about, we had obviously vaccines were made for a reason. They didn't just, let's make something to cure these diseases so we could be here today. And if it wasn't for vaccines, I probably won't be up here talking about it in the first place. And so actually have a video to upload.
There you go. Yep. There you go. You can turn it up from there.
Choice. His office later clarifying his remarks, saying there is no question kids should be vaccinated. Senator Rand Paul arguing Monday that vaccines should be a parent's choice.
I'm not arguing vaccines are a bad idea. I think they're a good thing, but I think the parents should have some input.
Hillary Clinton tweeting overnight, the science is clear. The earth is round, the sky is blue, and hashtag vaccines work. Let's protect all our kids. Hashtag grandmothers know best. The CDC recommends that children get their first dose of measles vaccine when they're 12 to 15 months old. This provides great protection for measles, and it also helps protect other children who are either too young or unable to get vaccinated.
Herd immunity. Okay, Rich, thanks very much. I know you're taking questions again.
Getting away with not having their child vaccinated, and in the end, the baby's more exposed to basically the world in a way in which if they did catch the cold or if they did catch the flu, the baby has a possibility of unfortunately passing away. And obviously, babies who aren't vaccinated have a higher death rate due to that. Whether it's they catch something real bad early on or it's just postponed later on in life. And so I have a couple, I guess, statistics right here. First one says certain parents choose not to get their babies vaccinated because of certain vaccines having too much mercury. And according to reports by the CDC, about 90% of children who died from the flu this past season were not vaccinated. So yes, the vaccine for the flu does have mercury in it, and it is regulated. That's something that parents don't realize when they are asked if they want to get their child vaccinated for the flu, especially this past season with it being at its all-time high, claiming 26 lives in the hospital, just alone for pediatric deaths. To the fact that kids are even dying from the flu at a time and point where we're so updated in technology and infrastructure, it doesn't really make any sense. And And so in reality, right here, according to the WHO, an estimated 2 million child deaths were prevented by vaccinations in 2003. That is a little outdated, but the fact that in 2003 we had that, the numbers right there, that to be that big, should have, put in a light bulb to parents like, hey, in 2003 we had 2 million child prevented deaths. Who knows what the numbers could be right now? And so basically, contents of the vaccine are regulated by the government, therefore there is no need for fear by levels of mercury. Organizations by the government, such as the CDC, does regulate the levels of mercury in the vaccines for the flu and other diseases too. So parents should really have no fear of whether or not to get their child vaccinated. And so the government's role in this should be that they need to really step in, have their foot in the door, and really look over to make sure that parents do get their child vaccinated. And right here you can see in the past year that deaths from the flu alone claimed lives of 125 children. And I actually have a friend whose brother did pass away this past winter season due to the flu. It was unfortunate and stuff, but when they did, go over, they asking other questions, he wasn't vaccinated. So, let alone that it hits this close, that the flu still, just the flu or even cases of measles popping up, the fact that this is still around really should, show everybody, especially parents that obviously vaccinated, not just because the parents might think the levels of mercury do affect the child's brain, but because the role of the vaccines have more pros than cons. And like I said, organizations just like the CDC, they do overlook regulations of levels of mercury and other things that could potentially be harmful, but it isn't like we're living in a country where our medicine isn't like overseen to make sure that it actually is effective. Therefore, the government really needs to make sure that parents do get their child vaccinated, because it can lead to like a domino effect. If parents that choose not to get their child vaccinated see that parents who do get their child vaccinated is doing okay, then they might come over to they might come over and want to get their child vaccinated. And today, here's a couple interesting things of vaccines that actually proved to be effective. Is today there are over 16 diseases protected by childhood vaccinations compared to only 8 that were prevented about 20 years ago, which is like I said before, measles and smallpox basically non-existent because of the fact that we have vaccines nowadays that make sure that we don't have this epidemic where you start seeing basically measles and smallpox wipe out the rest of our population.
So, at the end of 2014, it was a hot topic, and it's still a hot topic over vaccinating your children because of the measles outbreak that started in Disneyland, California, in California, and it broke out to several more states after that. So the government started making it a very political question and interviewed a lot of government officials to ask their opinions on it. And so this is the government's role in regulating vaccinations. So most agree that they should vaccinate, but the judicial branch of the U.S. government, so it has a lot of roles. The courts decide the validity of vaccination, and they attempt to address the conflict between individual rights and protection of individuals' rights, which just basically means that they believe that parents should have a choice, but they also believe that children should be vaccinated because it protects everyone. So a few stats. So deaths from measles, a major killer obviously in the past year, declined by 71% worldwide in just 11 years. Massachusetts became the first U.S. state to encourage the U.S. vaccination against smallpox, and in 1922 it became state mandated that you have to vaccinate your children in order to send them to school and be around other children. So why parents think that they don't have to vaccinate? Some believe that it's philosophically and religiously against their beliefs, so they think that this excuses them from their childhood boosters. But that's not legal in every state. I know in Mississippi it's mandatory, you cannot get out of vaccinating your children. similar to some parents then protecting their children because they do it out of spite of just not having to listen to the government. They just say, like, if you're telling me to do this, I don't really have to. And a lot of this sounds like it would come from like low class people or like hippies that don't really believe in medication or whatever. But this is just as an equal spectrum, or it's on that equal spectrum as everyone else. So like conservative libertarians have the same views. So how do you pay for immunizations? Well, in 2010, President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act, which helps families pay for vaccinations and other medications that they could normally afford. And also there's income-based insurance plans, and that means like no copay. So like when you go to the doctor, you don't have to pay anything, that your insurance covers it fully. And also health departments and schools, like school nurses, provide vaccinations for children and kids. This is an interview that I did with my sister, who's about to graduate from here to be a registered nurse. And it's like a really hot, obviously vaccinating is a really hot topic right now in the nursing world.
What are your beliefs on immunizations?
I believe that immunizations are a wonderful advancement in healthcare. I believe that immunizations result in the best outcome for children, and research has proven that the benefits greatly outweigh the risks.
Do you think there is a link between immunizations and autism?
I do not believe there is a link between immunizations and autism. In fact, the study that claimed that there was a link has been completely discredited. Unfortunately, this study was highly publicized, and we can't erase that from people's memories. I also feel that many parents believe that immunizations could be linked to autism because children began exhibiting symptoms around the same time they're vaccinated. However, this is also the same time children begin walking and talking. So even though the child could have had autism since birth, they might just now be noticing these symptoms.
Have you ever cared for a patient who is not vaccinated?
Yes. I took care of a toddler who was hospitalized for a severe respiratory infection, and her parents chose not to immunize.
What happened there?
Well, she was already immunocompromised because of her respiratory infection. So the healthcare team felt that educating her family about vaccines was a high priority, and they were very skeptical to begin with, but they opened up once the doctor shared his personal experience with immunizations. He was actually, he originally practiced in India, so he had seen a lot of cases of measles and polio and other diseases that could have been prevented with vaccinations, and the family actually ended up immunizing all 3 of their children.
Well, I'll be talking about autism and vaccination as Kim's sister touched upon in the video. Autism, like, what is it? Autism is a mental condition present from early childhood, characterized by difficulty in communicating and forming relationships with people, using language or abstract concepts. Children with autism have trouble understanding what other people say and feel, which makes it very hard for them to express themselves either through words or gestures or facial expressions and touch. A child with autism is very sensitive to like sounds, smells, sights. Say like if we had a kid in here with autism, if we flicker the lights on and off, it'll like irritate their eyes. And if like we were outside and there was a lot of noise like sirens and stuff from the police, it'll hurt their ears because it's like all in their heads and they just like lose control. Jennifer Ann McCarthy, who was famous for modeling, acting, and writing, and who was also an anti-vaccine activist.
she went on Oprah to say that her son was had been diagnosed with autism after vaccination. Many beliefs has been validated in March after officials in Georgia entitled the Real to Conversation because vaccines had aggravated symptoms, had aggravated underlying condition called autism-like symptoms or whatever. Most medical researchers argue that this is probably a coincidence. Autism symptoms tend to become apparent around the same time that children are scheduled to get routine vaccinations, as Kimberly sister said. 2 years ago, MMR scare stated that parents develop autistic symptoms and digestive alignment shortly after getting their first MMR dose. 14 studies included millions of children in several countries consistently showed no significant difference in autism rates between children who got the MMR vaccine. And I have a video to wrap up what I said.
Did you know you blink 66% less staring at screens? That's why your contact lenses may feel dry. Bausch & Lomb Ultra Contact Lenses retain moisture for 16 hours, even while you're staring at screens. Visit ultrafreetrial.com.
I don't think there is an other side here, frankly. You know, we get so used to this discussion about this side and that side. The two sides could just be simply the right side and the wrong side. We don't know what causes autism. I mean, that's fair to say. We're not sure as a scientific community what causes autism, but we know that vaccines do not. Right. And I think it's just important to say that as succinctly as I just did, and not to say, look, I'm going to delay the vaccines. You hear doctors coming out saying, you know, it's okay, let the parents choose. Of course, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I made that choice. I got them vaccinated on schedule, on time, to protect their health and to protect the health of the people around them. I also want to show you one other thing here. This is a little bit of a nuanced point, this other graphic I have. Looking at the way that we used to vaccinate in the past, how we vaccinate now, and look at how autism rates have sort of changed since that time. We can put that graphic up. But basically, it's showing that in the past, look back there in the 1960s, we gave a lot more in terms of vaccine load to kids' bodies. About 3,500 times more. And at some point, sort of in the late 90s, we started to give lower doses of vaccines to try and get the same results. But here's my point. Throughout that time, autism rates continued to go up. So despite the fact that the vaccines themselves have gone down in terms of amount, autism rates have gone up. So there really is no link. Someone could make the argument that vaccines have actually been protective against autism. So it's really, there's nothing there. And I worry about that as a father, and I gave my kids vaccines. I think that's really important.
And finish off with the question, I would like to say,
you probably know Xerox is the company that's all about supporting hospitals using electronic health records for over 30 million patients. Just one more way we're helping companies simplify the way work gets done. With Xerox, you're ready for real business.
If there wasn't any vaccines in the world, what would people have to place? What would people blame autism on? How would they say autism is developed in children and kids nowadays? And with that, I'll let Jesse.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about what the world would be like without vaccinations. And when I was assigned this topic, I first thought I might as well find out what people our age think of vaccinations first. So I just went around my dorm and asked some friends some basic questions about what they thought about vaccinations. Okay, well, I guess my opinion is up. Pretty much, I just went to, as 2 guys and 2 girls, and I just pretty much asked them if they knew what vaccinations were. And then I asked them some personal questions on if they've been vaccinated, and all 4 of them said they had for basic things like flu. And one girl said that she had been out of the country and she had to get vaccinated for diseases that could be out of the country. And later on, we'll talk about how that's good for the country. But after interviewing them and finding out what we thought about vaccinations, I wanted to see like what we didn't know about vaccinations, which this is just stuff in the past that we might not have known. In the early 1330s, there was this bubonic plague, and it was called like the Black Death. And what happened was, in China, this plague called bubonic plague, it was a deathly virus that was killing a lot of people, and it caused fever, swollen lymph nodes, and then part of your skin would turn red, and then I guess it turned black. And pretty much what happened was a group of guys from Italy went to China, which in this time China was a huge world trade place, and I guess they went there and they got the disease and the virus, and then on the way back to Europe, once they were almost back, men on the ship had already died, and like it was spreading rapidly on the boat. So then once they got back to Europe, it just spread like wildfire pretty much, where in the end, 1/3 of Europe's population was destroyed. And not only was this killing people, this is also hurting like Europe in general, because they're running out of people. That means like their jobs, like were having trouble filling spots, so guys were having to work overtime. They were demanding more money because they had to work more, but the landlords wouldn't pay them more because they couldn't afford it, I guess. So it not only was killing people, it was driving people insane. And another epidemic was the smallpox epidemic. And smallpox is just headache, high fever, backaches, and are the main symptoms. And it is transmitted through face-to-face contact or through body fluids. And in 1950 to 1960, it says it killed over 500 million people, which is sort of not really recent, but I mean, it's kind of ballpark being recent. And it was a huge thing in the Revolutionary War in 1775. One of the leaders said that this war was mainly about not even bullets, it was mainly about keeping the troops alive due to smallpox. It was killing more people than actual battle in the war. And if you all remember our video, I just wanted to put in perspective. Think about if we never had vaccinations, and for example, Kendall, when she bought her Gatorade, they both touched, and they could, the smallpox, it can be transmitted through fluids, so that lady's hand was kind of sweaty, and she handed her card back, now Kendall has smallpox. Ryan was playing tennis with a tennis racket he checked out from the JC. I'm sure many people have used that tennis racket that could have had the bubonic plague. And as DQ, I forgot to mention that, sorry. The bubonic plague was transmitted through, not one way it was transmitted, was through insects, or bite someone else and they have it. DQ's walking outside, he get bit by a mosquito. It happened through bubonic plague. And I just wanted to show that it could be so easily happen. It could so easily happen to any of us if none of us were vaccinated. And to go from here to the whole United States, like in Europe when the bubonic plague spread everywhere. If we don't have vaccines, then it can easily spread everywhere. Thanks to vaccines, that doesn't happen. But a story, a kind of story that kind of not really affected my life, but it could have, was about my little brother. Right when he was born, I guess I was pretty young, so I don't remember it very a lot of detail, but he was born, and I'm pretty sure we took him home, and he had just a really high fever, so my mom called the hospital, and they were like, yeah, you need to get him back here as soon as you can. So they went to the hospital, and I guess they tested him for whatever, to see what was wrong with him, and it turned out he had some form of meningitis, and my parents were they said it was one of the scariest things ever, really close to losing him, and we didn't, I think it was because of vaccination, not for sure, but I'm sure they vaccinated him afterward. Oh, actually what it was I'm pretty sure they vaccinated him, and then I guess the infection took over, it was too strong, but in the long run he's fine now, and he's healthy, he's in high school, and he's doing okay. I'm just glad that we have this technology to be where we are and have everyone living.
Good personal examples. I'm glad you all didn't die from the making of your
let's open things up for questions. Tolu, what do you think? Yeah, yeah. I saw your head down concentration, so what do you think?
Or do you think that forcing parents to vaccinate their children is violating constitutional rights?
No, I don't think so at all.
You don't think it's violating constitutional rights? Or
No, I don't think it violates constitutional rights.
Why?
I mean, it's for the safety of everyone, and I mean, I just think it's bad. I just think it's stupid if you don't vaccinate your children, because it's for the good of everybody, and I think the government should have say in what you do to protect the community.
Actually, it's getting harder and harder for kids to be enrolled anywhere without vaccinations. I mean, just dealing with a daycare starting registration, you really can't put kids anywhere without vaccinations anymore. So there's something else to consider. Personal stuff, but okay. Anything else? Natalie, what do you think? Oh, sorry, yeah, Natalie Bitch, sorry.
Oh, okay. I guess, cause like, this year was like the first year I didn't get my flu shot, and then I got the flu. But I just think it's like, the first time I ever had it too, I just think it's like, that kind of made me be like, oh hey, that's like actually a good thing to get, but I agree with you, like, it's stupid if you don't or like get your kids vaccinated.
Great job,